We're living in a digital world, but only 0.3% of professionals know how to program, how to code. How can we keep going with only 0.3% doing the development work to create everything that the other 99.7% of professionals will need to use in their work? Recently, a group of companies has started to challenge this status quo. These companies are building what have become known as no-code solutions or no-code tools that allow non-technical people to create digital products. In this series of videos, we're going to talk to some of the people behind these companies. These are some of the movers and the shakers that are helping to push forward the no-code movement. Hi, Mark. Thanks for taking the time to join us. We're going to be doing a series of quick questions, and just so that people can get to know you better and get to know the people that are behind this low-code, no-code movement. So, again, thanks a lot for joining us.
My pleasure. I would love to be a part, present for your audience and share, the history of the company or anything that we're doing today. So I'll be more than happy to answer your questions.
Great, and that's really along the lines that we will be going. I'm here with Alexandro, who is my partner, and we've started a no-code information hub down in Brazil, and we're taking it globally now. So this series is part of this expansion effort, we could say. Yeah. So just as we start, Backendless is a low-code platform, more targeted at developers than at what we call the citizen developer. But recently you've released an interface builder. Is this a move to become more accessible to non-developers or non-tech people, or just a way to make developers more productive, or perhaps both?
That is correct. So Backendless, as it is today, we would like to think about it as a visual development platform. And of course, with no code, with the majority of the tools that exist out there, it is all about visual. What's different about us is that we see application development really cohesively as a process that involves multiple areas. Of course, UI is one of them. This is the user interface. This is the user experience. But I believe the importance of being able to create the backend and in a way that satisfies the requirements of that the user experience drives, it is just as important. So you're right that we recently released UI building capability, and that was not a coincidence, because at the time when I started the company, my vision was to build a system that would be an end-to-end solution, where if you have an idea, I wanted to make it as simple as possible for that person, whether they are technical or not, is to materialize this idea and then create a highly scalable application. You're right that for the most part, throughout the history of my company, we're focused on the backend. And once again, it is also not a coincidence, because I believe that creating a highly scalable backend, the one that is sophisticated and can satisfy requirements of different applications, is a much harder problem to solve than creating a no-code UI solution. Okay, and another thing that is very important is you could have beautiful interface, fantastic, graphically very pleasant to use, and it's like very intuitive. However, you have 100,000 users hitting your application. If the backend cannot handle the traffic and it goes down, the value of your beautiful interface is really zero. It doesn't matter at this point if users cannot use your application because backend failed. So, and specifically from that perspective, we focused on the backend first, okay? And the majority of our customers until recently were developers that build applications for Android, for iOS, for JavaScript, with .NET, with Unity, games, social apps, banking apps, and they were consuming us strictly as the backend. And that gave us tremendous opportunity to create highly scalable solution that provides a lot of sophistication with data modeling, with APIs, with being able to deploy custom business logic. Once we got to the point where we said, we are confident that we can handle huge traffic, we are confident that we can start scaling out on as needed basis, let's add that missing piece of creating the UI capability right into our platform. So at this point, we know that backend is highly scalable. It can address pretty much majority of the use cases. We build a lot of products on our own for our customers. And now with the UI system, it's basically finally the vision that I had back then. We now have it as in the form of the product that is available.
That is great to know, because we both, Mauricio and me, we have technical background. So I'm much more a back-end guy than a front-end guy.
Right.
And usually people do not pay attention to the back-end questions. And usually that's where the problem is in reality. Because
Exactly.
showing good interface is very important, but if the back-end is not working, you have nothing at the end. Yeah.
Exactly. And that happens everywhere. People do not take backend seriously. Like for example, we see a lot of applications. We see what people do with Backendless, and then when support questions arises that some data is loading slow, and we go into the system and we see a data table that has 200 columns. Okay, 200 columns. None of them are indexed. Relations into like 50 other tables. And of course, nobody just thinks that you make a single query and it spans over half of your database and loads gigabytes of data. Of course, things will slow down. So it is definitely part of our job is to deliver the message, to deliver the best practices, so people understand that the performance of the client side really is dependent on how well the backend does it. And that is particularly true with no code, because now that we have the UI building capability, and you're right, when you said that we wanted to expand the accessibility and the reach of our technology for people who are not technical, yes, we want that to happen. We want people who have an idea and they just don't have money or they don't have any connections to hire developers. We want them to at least try and see if they can become successful building that application. That is definitely are we there yet? We're getting there. We're not fully there because there is a lot that a person must know. Like start with data modeling. How do you structure your database schema so it truly reflects the entities that your UI operates on? That's a skill. It's not obvious to a lot of people. Some people just throw everything into a single table, and you have orders and order items, and you have addresses, contacts, like you support JSON, no problem. We'll just stick anything you want to be. Yes, it's possible. Will it work well? Is it maintainable? Not so much. But with no-code solutions being so accessible, it is very easy to misstep and to start moving in the wrong direction, just because you can just drag and drop, click things together, think something will work. So I believe it is our responsibility as a vendor is to establish best practices and demonstrate how to do things the right way when you build an application.
And I've gone through some of your online training, and it's a very well-organized system that you have. I believe I've gone through, I think, 7 lessons so far. And that is something that I found really distinctive about Backendless, is that it is bringing this more, I guess you could say, I wouldn't want to call it organized, because then it implies that other people are disorganized, but perhaps more structured approach.
Right, that's a good word.
Yeah, to help people get to know what to do with the platform, the tool, right?
You're absolutely right.
And but then I guess when looking at this space for new tools, I guess that there's a huge difference between different companies from how long they've been or in existence and how long they've been focused on this kind of thing. So I guess that's something that people might really be interested in knowing is where are you based and how many people you have in the company right now,
Okay.
and for how long have you been around?
Sure, that's a good question. So the company has been around for 8 years, starting from the very first day when we had an idea to build this platform. The company at this point is still fairly small. There's only 40 people in the company. Okay, we are highly distributed. With COVID, and I hope it goes away soon, but it didn't really impact us that much because we were already operating in a highly distributed manner where the actual physical location of any particular engineer or QA or myself, for that matter, it didn't really matter. Okay, the biggest challenge is just the time zone differences. Outside of that, we can connect. We have the workflows that allow us to communicate the requirements, and people can connect and discuss. And so the information flow was already there. So that didn't really impact us. But the company is still fairly small. We haven't raised any outside investments. So we were able to grow to the point where we are. And we, as far as just the customer base, we're very large. And the traffic that the platform is handling is very large. But we were able to get there purely organically just by, building out the best possible technology and making it easy for people to get started and build applications. So as far as the actual locations, it is an American company. We're headquartered in Dallas, in the United States, Dallas, Texas. We have development centers in Ukraine, in Kiev, and not just Kiev, pretty much throughout Ukraine. We have people in Italy, in Milan. We have people in Czech Republic. And from that perspective, with the current infrastructure that we have, we can start adding people pretty much anywhere in the world, and they will be able to plug in and start getting productive quickly. The company consists of two primary teams. There is a product team that is focusing on strictly just the product, Backendless platform, and that goes for the cloud version that we have, and we also have a version that you can download and install on your computer or in your data center. It is all Docker-based. It runs in Kubernetes environment. So the product team focuses on that. We also have consulting services team that works on various projects, and those are the turnkey solutions, fairly complicated projects that are based on top of Backendless. And that helps us tremendously because we have our own people who work on the projects for a customer, and they tell us, what the requirements are, so we can continue improving the product because we know that certain things are needed, and that bi-directional communication. And if something is done in Backendless, we communicate to our guys, look, this is available, you can start using it. So this bi-directional communication propels us to build a better product.
That's great. Very interesting. You are all around the world.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, it's good. It's interesting. One thing you told us about the backend, the importance of the backend. We started by this discussion, but what was the idea? 8 years ago, you said you started 8 years ago with the idea. What was the basic idea behind Backendless, and what about the name? Also, if you can explain us. Yeah.
So at that time, it was really a pivot because at that time I had another company where we were building integration product, and it was a product that people would download to their computers, to their installations, and the product was this universal gateway that allowed different types of client-side technologies, and those are Ajax with JavaScript, Silverlight from Microsoft, Flash and Flex from Adobe and Macromedia. So just different types of kind of rich internet application technologies. The product enabled communication with different types of backends, .NET, and Java, and PHP. And our primary customers were using Flex and Flash. So what happened is we basically, with Apple becoming the dominant platform and specific attitude coming from Steve Jobs towards Flash and Flex, we kind of saw that the demand is going to start slowing down and will become non-existent. And I think actually this year that Adobe says the Flash player just goes away, which is probably a good thing. So at that time we had tremendous intellectual property in our product that was able to translate incoming requests into invocations in Java, in PHP, in .NET. And the idea was that rather than providing this application that people would download to their computers, the idea was take it, put it in the cloud, and make general services available to manipulate the backend. In other words, you could just instantly create a database without doing anything special, because you use the API call that stores data in the database, and it's done. We automatically figure out the columns, put the data in there. And then likewise for all other areas of application development, and that's user management, file management. We had media server at the time, geolocation, so sending out emails. So all those things, the idea was to start creating them as reusable services and customizable services. And of course, that was the first step, because as I was thinking about it, it's like, okay, so we have this platform and people can make API calls and we provide this backend, but they still have to write code. They still have to develop applications. And then in my mind, the longer term vision, okay, we will build this super sophisticated backend, but at some point we will create a system that allows users to create UIs. Does it stop there? Is my thinking going further? Yes, there's definitely more than that, and that's what you will see in the new versions of Backendless, because once you create a single application, it's for a lot of solutions it's not sufficient. If you, for instance, take any enterprise app, you have your CRM, and you have interfaces that are used by customer support, and you have interfaces that are used by different users in different roles. Like for instance, for Uber, there is an app that is used by drivers, there's an app that is used by users. Data flows between these multiple applications. So right now with Backendless, yes, you can build those different applications, creating rules that integrate the data into a single thing, creating those workflows is going to be the next big step as to where we're heading.
All right. So this is actually like an evolution of what you had before, but with a different mindset when looking at it, right?
Yeah.
So
Correct.
you kind of became a backend as a service.
That's correct. That's exactly what it is. It is the backend as a service, where now, well, backend as a service for a long time was our position. But if the question of what is Backendless, it is a backend as a service. Now, backend as a service is just really one of the components of the overall platform, okay? Because it provides the backend as a service, and you can consume it only from that perspective. But there is also the UI building capability, application development capability, where the backend is instantly integrated into the UI system. So for instance, as you build the UI logic, you can instantly integrate this data with the backend by using our no-code blocks to save data in the database, or run queries, or send out emails, send out push notification. And it's very, very easy to create this solution where that is tightly integrated. Which is also an advantage of our solution in comparison to others, okay? Where with others, like for instance, if you take Wix, fantastic system to create simple marketing websites, okay? When it comes to persistence, they have an idea of collections, and you just store those records, but the sophistication that a lot of modern applications need, it is lacking, because you cannot create relations, you cannot create validators, you cannot create different rules that are executed on this data. And the question is how well that backend will work when you start having 100,000, million, several million records. It is questionable. I don't know. Maybe it will work great, but something tells me it's not going to perform very well. With Backendless, we were proven in numerous installations where you can have millions of records, and the system will automatically handle all the load distribution, sorting, replication, and so on, where you will not see any performance degradation. And that's something that is not easy to achieve.
Yeah, very interesting, because you came from an integration perspective, and that is great, because the current situation all around the world is that people usually stays with one systems and the others and the others, and the great problem for the IT departments and for even for developers is how to put everything together, because you have to get the power from all the different solutions and create on top of them, not another thing doing the same thing. Yeah, if you, I don't know if
Right.
you can understand the idea, but the idea is really this: taking what you have, integrating them, and put more characteristics over what you have. Not reinventing the wheel, because this is losing money, losing time. Yeah,
you are absolutely correct. Yeah. So the complexity with every layer, like if you look at the application stack, like an application that someone is building on top of Backendless or in general, it is a layer of technologies. You have your persistence, and your file system, and then persistence, and then you have your API tier, and then you have your web tier, and then the security goes in the kind of a parallel and applies to every single one. Then all of this is start integrating with other parts, and you have microservices, and you have identity management system, and you have queues of data that everybody's listening. Yes, it can get complicated very, very quickly, and it's not complicated from creating it in a way where it just works and it's scalable, but it's also complicated because there are so many choices now of finding what is it, that one technology that can give you the biggest bang for the buck, that will not make you broke, because some things, they may look inexpensive. Once you start using them and will get your monthly bill, like, really, like, where did that come from? Like, for instance, with Amazon, we got burned because when we started, everything looked great. Like, the prices are very reasonable. We start creating our system, build it out in AWS. A couple of years into it, our monthly bill is like $18,000. We were not even making that much money, but we would have to pay more to Amazon, and then ending up with really nothing, only because every single little thing that you use on Amazon costs money. Like, every single second, every single transmission, every single API, there are counters everywhere. So we moved away and we saved a lot of money. But it's an example where, if you're talking about lessons learned, it's something that you need to think ahead as to what it's going to cost you, how much time it's going to take you. Can you find talent technical talent, who will be able to support you? So in the modern solutions, all those things must not be overlooked, because otherwise you either will be re-implementing everything, or you will be spending a lot of money if you have made some missteps somewhere.
That's the description you just given about hidden costs and that kind of thing. It brings an interesting question that I've been asking people is that, do you know of any specific circumstance or any specific case in which Backendless actually kind of made the difference to make a company viable? Because as you mentioned, for a lot of things, you need to find the right talent, and many times people that are starting a company, they don't really have the funds to be able to afford the right talent. They have the idea, but they can't really make it work. And is this something that you've seen cases in which having this kind of package solution that takes care of making these decisions that most people aren't even aware that they have to make?
Sure.
Makes a difference.
We have seen it multiple times. We have seen situations where people come back to us and saying that they can actually now make a living. In other words, they quit their full-time jobs because at one point they started learning Backendless, they started learning, let's say, Android programming. And it was before we introduced our UI. They built apps that they could build with us because we provide a system where you can start in a very inexpensive manner. Okay, and with the current offering, you can actually develop with Backendless with virtually limitless limits. Like, it's a very fat plan that is there for development. It will not cost you anything if you go through our missions program and kind of earn that free plan. So we have people coming back to us saying that they release their apps, and they, one app, a couple of apps that generates enough income where people were able to quit their full-time job and just continue improving their app that runs in Backendless, which is fantastic. Like, I love hearing those stories because it makes our job way more meaningful, because we did it for a reason. And the reason was never to make money. Of course, money is important, but the spirit, the drive that we have to create Backendless was really just to empower new ideas, to give people opportunities to materialize their ideas and build apps. So yes, I have heard it multiple times. In fact, some of the case studies that we publish on our website, we talk about it, where we basically point out that people started with just an idea. They were able to get to the point where it generates enough income for them. With no code, with UI building capability, I believe we will see and hear those stories a lot more. And we already see that people who don't have a lot of programming background, they get into our technology, they start learning. And of course, when you talked about the learning mechanism, I believe it is very important, not just for anyone, for any technology today, the lowering the barrier of entry into the technology is a must. Because if it is complicated, if you have to talk to salespeople who arrange presentations and demonstrate how things work, those, for me personally, it's very subjective, but for me personally, those type of things just push you out. Like, I really don't want to talk to salespeople, okay? At this point, and it's 2020, 21st century, I want that vendor trust me that I'm technical enough and knowledgeable enough to be able to figure out their technology on my own. Like, if I have to talk to a vendor, especially today, that offers no code, and they think that they will show me something that I don't understand, that's already something that I think is very negative, that speaks for their technology. It means that it's not very intuitive, or you think I'm a dumb user. One of the two.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. But it's interesting because you are talking now about the abstractions of no code and low code. What is your vision for the next 2 or 3 years in terms of no code and low code penetration? Because this is getting huge right now, and more, and we think that this will continue for a long time because there's not enough technical guys to create the solutions, and the demand for digitalization and creating of products, mobile products, web products, all of this is huge without people. So no code and low code is a great solution when you consider the right tools, and of course when you put a stack on place, because it's not just one tool, it's a set of tools that will make a difference.
Exactly. Well, you hit the nail right on its head. And you said that there's not that many developers. There are way more ideas. So plus everyone is looking for productivity gain. Okay, if an average time to build a code-based solution for a mobile app was anywhere between, let's say, 3 months to a year, depending on the complexity. People don't have that much time because your competitors are going to be moving faster. You just have to assume that other people will be moving faster. So in the next 2 to 3 years, or maybe even shorter than that, what I believe is going to be happening is existing systems for building, let's say, mobile applications. And here we don't have that many. It is Android Studio, it is Xcode, it is AppCode by JetBrains that provides the Xcode capability. So, and there are not that many. So what's going to happen is either through acquisitions or somehow no-code development systems will become part of these major platforms. Okay, because I am pretty sure that both Google and Apple and Microsoft and others, they realize that they need to keep lowering the barrier of entry and provide people a way to create those apps as quickly as possible. So there's going to be an acceleration of the acceptance of that way of building applications. Okay, and once those companies enter it in a big way, that it will essentially just establish the standard for how things are done, and the majority of people will just jump onto it, and that's how things are going to be done. In the longer term period of time, what I believe is going to happen is that majority of the vendors that you see today that provide the building blocks for creating applications, starting from ancient, dinosaurs like SAP and others, for that provide this ancient technology, there will be a layer on top of their technology that makes it easier to create applications on top of that. Okay, and here you have Salesforce and just all the typical like this enterprise level vendors. Of course, companies like ours, and there's a bunch of these companies now and you have the Webflow and Bubble and Adalo and Integromat and Zapier and others. They will be pushing the envelope, making it easier and easier, okay? Where you can actually start creating super sophisticated applications. And you will see that there will be no code elements for adding AI, because that's going to be important, and optical recognition, and just creating workflows. So I see no code not so much as revolution, but more of evolution. It's sort of like the next wave of application development that essentially just makes it simpler, more reliable, faster, and cheaper to get to the end goal. Like over the past 20 years, with all the things that have been popping up, and starting from like SOA architectures and microservices, and being able to exchange data and integrate it and just connect different, JSON documents through visual tools. Those are just, those waves of that evolution that simplify it for application developers. So here we just see this yet again, the new thing that democratizes app development for even greater audiences.
One question that came to mind when I started looking at Backendless was if you were inspired when you created the visual logic design part of the tool by that, what's it called? Is this
Blockly.
Blockly? That's the name I had in mind. I think
Scratch.
Scratch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very similar. It's very, maybe they have the same roots in the beginning. So we use for visual logic designer a system called Blockly.
All right.
Blockly has a history of coming out from MIT. I think it was called MIT App Inventor back in the days. And then MIT App Inventor, they created Blockly. I think they put it in the public domain, open sourced. Then Google took over, maybe with funding, with some help. So kind of Google maintains Blockly now. And it's a very friendly terms for enterprises to use it. We looked into it. We really liked how it is structured. We liked how the code can be generated by using the logic designer. And it really met our requirements. At first, we integrated it into the backend. So you can do API services, timers, which is like the cron jobs. You can augment API logic with that. So it really fit our needs. And then when we started working on the UI building capability, of course, we already had experience with it, and it just fit in nicely. So yes, it is a great system, very flexible. We're very happy with it. Has a ton of interesting things. Like for instance, for us, if you were to create an API service without any coding, like with no code system, and you have multiple methods, and it's highly scalable, it is deployed, and you just continue building your system, then every single method that you have in that API service becomes a separate block. Okay, so their usability, like you created an API service without any coding, and every single method becomes its own block. You can use it in other areas, so it basically kind of starts one part, feeds another part, and we can start building out more complex system.
Very interesting. One thing, we are very close to the end of the conversation, so I want to ask you one very important thing. Okay. If someone comes to you and asks you, is being a no-coder a good thing for the future? What is your answer for this question?
I believe it is. I believe it is, because even as simple as things may look for the process of building, it is still a skill, okay? Because whether you do it with code or whether you do it without code, some things, they remain unchanged. Like, for instance, the ability to think about the problem algorithmically, logically, understanding how to model your data, understanding how data needs to go through different transformations and all the logic that needs to apply. It doesn't matter if you do it with code or without code. Those are just the tools, okay? So the skill of approaching a problem logically and algorithmically with the discipline of knowing how to structure it all together, that remains unchanged. So for people who decide that they're going to learn a programming language or they're going to learn a no-code tool, and with an idea to become an application developer, I would say go to the basics first, okay? go and start studying data structures, understand the differences between the stack and the linked list, and where each one fits better for a particular problem. Okay, understand whether you need to use like JSON to pass data, or perhaps something that is more structured from the database perspective. Those are the things that will make a difference between someone who is really good and knows how to use code or no code versus someone who just understood how to stitch things in the user interface but cannot do anything more than that.
Oh, Mark, I really like to thank you again for taking the time to join us for this conversation. It's been very interesting to get to know more about the history of the company and where you're coming from to where you're going. So thank you.
My pleasure. It's been fantastic chatting with you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much.